The wrench clattered to the concrete floor as an engineer cursed under his breath. "This is impossible," he barked, his voice echoing through the cavernous hall. The air smelled of burnt oil and hot steel, thick and suffocating. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the $1 million prototype engine that sat dead lifeless at the center of the room. Sweat dripped down the brows of men in pressed shirts and lab coats. The room was paralyzed by failure. And then, movement. From the shadows, a girl in a faded jumpsuit crouched beside the engine. Grease streaked her cheeks, her hands trembling as she reached for the ignition. The chief engineer sneered. "Step away. This isn't a place for amateurs." But she didn't move. She slid into the driver's seat, twisted the key, and the engine roared back to life. A metallic growl filled the room, deep and powerful, like music to anyone who understood machines. The silence shattered. The impossible had just been undone, by the one person no one had taken seriously. If stories like this inspire you, share in the comments where you're watching from. And remember to like and subscribe, you won't want to miss the next story. Her name was Laura Bennett. Since she was 8 years old, she had been her father's shadow in their small-town garage. While other kids played with dolls or video games, Laura passed wrenches, asked questions, and memorized the sounds of engines coughing back to life. The smell of gasoline, the clink of tools, the rumble of old trucks, it was all more familiar to her than cartoons or pop songs. Now 17, Laura wasn't just helping. She was the heartbeat of her father's failing business. Robert Bennett did everything he could to keep the shop alive, but debt collected faster than customers. They lived in the cramped rooms behind the garage, 2 small bedrooms, a patched kitchen, walls stained by years of grease and smoke. At night, when the lights clicked off, the scent of oil still lingered in the air. It was in that dim, cramped room that Laura studied under the glow of a cracked lamp. She was the only girl in her vocational mechanics class at the local community college. Each morning she walked in with oil-stained fingers, straight from the garage. She dreamed of becoming an engineer, but tuition was a dream far out of reach. Still, she devoured every online lecture she could find, pulled apart scrap engines, fixed radios, fans, even old tractors neighbors brought by. She wasn't just skilled. She was obsessed. Her father, a widower for 5 years, always reminded her, "You're sharper than most engineers I've ever met. You just don't have the diploma yet." She'd laugh it off, but deep down she carried those words. Every time she saw him dozing in his chair, hands still black with grease, she whispered silently, "I'll make things better. For both of us." But the outside world didn't share his faith. At school, classmates called her Grease Monkey. Professors brushed off her insights, interrupting before she could finish. "Mechanics kid," they said. "You'll never be more than that." She pretended not to care, but she carried a blue spiral notebook everywhere. Inside it were engine diagrams, formulas, even quotes she copied from worn library books. It wasn't just paper, it was her future, sketched in ink and determination. Every late night in the garage taught her the same truth: being good wasn't enough. She had to be undeniable. The world didn't see her yet. But one day, it would have no choice. That chance came sooner than expected. A statewide competition gave her the opportunity to present a technical project. Against all odds, her design earned her an invitation for an internship at one of America's largest automakers. The day she got the call, she ran to her father, who was wiping his hands on a dirty rag. "Dad, they want me to come in." Robert's eyes filled with pride, though his tone carried a warning. "I knew it, Laura. I always knew. But inside those walls, people like us don't get seen the same way." On interview day, Laura wore her cleanest jeans, tied her hair back, and slipped her blue notebook into her backpack. The automaker's campus was a different world: gleaming glass, spotless floors, robots moving in mechanical rhythm, futuristic cars shining under sterile lights. Her chest swelled with awe, until reality set in. Her badge read intern, but her orders were clear: observe only. Don't touch. Don't interfere. As she walked the polished floor, a tall young engineer smirked at her. "Careful not to get grease on the floor, rookie." His name was Mark, and he would soon prove to be her greatest obstacle. Others laughed. Laura lowered her gaze, but her hand brushed her notebook like a secret pact. Watch. Learn. Write it down. And she did. Every sensor, Every mistake, every tiny detail, they all went into the notebook. She realized something powerful: invisibility could be a weapon, if she turned it into knowledge. Weeks later, the company was buzzing with anticipation. They were about to unveil their crown jewel, a hybrid electric prototype engine, the boldest project in the company's history. Millions of dollars had gone into it. Investors were flying in. This was supposed to be history in the making. The hall was packed. Engineers stood ready, screens flashing with data. Laura sat in the corner, notebook in hand. The ignition clicked. The machine whirred, then choked. A metallic screech. Silence. The prototype died. Shock rippled through the room. Dr. Arnold Whitaker, the lead engineer, paced furiously. Investors exchanged nervous glances. Panic spread. Mark stepped forward confidently. "It's the inverter," he declared. "No, it's the control software," another argued. The shouting escalated. But Laura saw something else. Something subtle. The readings on the screen were familiar, eerily similar to a broken-down pickup she'd fixed years ago. Her pulse quickened. She knew exactly what it was. But she also knew, if she spoke, no one would listen. Worse, she might lose everything. Still, silence carried its own danger. And her silence weighed heavier by the second. Finally, she couldn't hold back. "Excuse me," Laura said, her voice trembling but determined. "I don't think it's the inverter or the software. I think it's—" Mark burst into laughter, clapping mockingly. "Listen to this. The intern thinks she's the expert now. You'll teach us engineers." Dr. Whitaker's eyes blazed. "Miss Bennett, sit down. You are here to observe, not interfere." Her heart pounded. She tried again. "But if you just look at the sensor data—" "Enough." Whitaker thundered. "One more word and your contract is terminated. And since your father works here on contract as a janitor, perhaps you'd prefer not to jeopardize his job as well." The words slammed into her like a blow. Across the hall, Robert was sweeping, unaware of the threat but noticing the tears brimming in his daughter's eyes as she sat back down. That night, dinner at home was quiet. Robert tried to coax her into talking, but she forced a smile. "I'm fine, Dad, just tired." But inside, she wasn't fine. She was broken. Her first attempt to prove herself had ended in humiliation, and a threat to the man she loved most. Days passed. The prototype remained dead, and panic spread like wildfire. Engineers turned on each other, every test ending in failure. Laura kept her distance, but her eyes never stopped absorbing. Every faulty assumption, every wrong adjustment, she noted them all. In the locker room, she read old manuals she'd borrowed. At lunch, she sketched diagrams until her hands cramped. Some nights she cried into her sleeve, muffling the sound, but the next morning, she returned with her notebook. She wasn't giving up. Older technicians, men who'd worked decades without degrees, shook their heads. "Kid, you're sharp," one said. "But this place? They don't let voices like yours get heard." Still, she persisted. One night, leaving the factory, she overheard Mark whispering to another engineer. "If this isn't fixed by Friday, the whole project's dead." Can you imagine the fallout? Her chest tightened. Friday. That was the deadline. That night, in her notebook, she scrawled in bold letters. "They're blind. But I see it." Friday came like a storm. The test hall was suffocating with pressure. Investors were on their way. Failure was not an option. Laura sat silently, notebook open. She knew with certainty now, the failure came from a miscalibrated flow sensor. A tiny detail, one she had seen before in her father's garage. One no one else seemed willing to consider. Engines sputtered, computers crashed, engineers shouted over one another. Time was slipping away. Robert entered quietly, collecting tools left scattered on the floor. He glanced at his daughter, gripping her notebook like a lifeline, her lips moving as if rehearsing the answer she couldn't speak. He leaned close, whispering so only she could hear. "If you're sure, Laura, don't hold back. Better to fail trying than spend your life wondering." Her breath caught. Tears burned her eyes. And then she rose to her feet, her voice cutting across the chaos. "I know what's wrong." The room froze. Mark smirked, ready to pounce, but Lara pressed on. The flow sensor is miscalibrated. That's why the system locks. It's not the software. It's not the inverter. It's bad data shutting everything down. For a moment, silence. Then Whitaker's voice, cold as steel. That is enough. Security, remove her. The guard stepped forward. Robert moved instinctively, but Lara raised her hand. She would stand alone. Her chest was tight, her knees shook, but she would not back down. This was it. She would either be expelled forever, or prove she was right. Wait. The single word stopped everything. Mr. August Thompson, the elder statesman of the company, stepped forward. His cane tapped against the floor as he studied her. Flow sensor, you said? Yes, sir, Lara answered, steadying her voice. The readings match what I've seen before. The system thinks it's a catastrophic failure when it isn't. It locks everything out. Mock scoffed. Oh please. Comparing a state-of-the-art engine to some rust bucket from a junkyard. But August didn't laugh. He studied the monitor carefully. The silence was heavy enough to hear the ticking clock on the wall. Finally, he straightened. She's right. This is the same failure mode we faced in the 90s. We fixed it by recalibrating. How did none of us see this? Murmurs spread. Engineers looked at each other in shame. Mock paled. August turned back to Lara, a small smile breaking through. Sometimes, it takes fresh eyes to see what tired ones overlook. You've got those eyes, Miss Bennett. He stepped aside. Well then. Show us. The hall transformed into a stage. All eyes on her. I need a 12mm wrench, a calibrator, and access to the panel, she said. August's hand rose. Give her what she needs. No one dared argue. Tools were brought. Lara rolled up her sleeves, hair tied back tight, sweat dripping down her temple. Her fingers worked with precision, loosening bolts, adjusting settings, tightening again. The system is smart, she explained as she worked. But it's only as strong as the data it receives. One wrong number breaks the entire equation. Her hands moved fast, sure, guided by years of experience no classroom had ever acknowledged. Minutes stretched like hours. Robert watched from the shadows, wiping a tear with the back of his hand. Finally, Lara straightened. It's recalibrated. Now we test. August extended the ignition key. Your turn, Miss Bennett. Her hands trembled. Her heart thundered. But she took the key. The hall fell silent. She turned the key. The engine sputtered. Coughed. Went quiet. Mark's lips curled in a sneer. I knew it. Amateur move. But then, a low hum. Lights flickered from red, to yellow to green. The hum swelled until the engine exploded into a full-throated roar. The floor vibrated. The walls shook. The machine didn't just work, it sang. Gasps filled the hall. Engineers froze in disbelief. Directors leaned forward, stunned. Robert covered his mouth, tears streaming freely now. August smiled proudly. Mark stumbled backward, white as a sheet. Whitaker clenched his fists, his power crumbling. Lara stepped back, letting the sound speak for her. Her voice rang out clear. Never underestimate someone because of where they come from. Knowledge can be born anywhere. And greatness doesn't ask for permission. The engine's roar drowned out every doubt. She had done it. She had changed everything. The doors burst open. Investors streamed in, cameras flashing. Whitaker rushed forward, arms outstretched. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, our engine is finally perfected. But a reporter pointed directly at Lara, grease still staining her jumpsuit. Was it her? Did the intern fix it? The room froze. August stepped forward. Yes. Miss Bennett solved the issue none of us could. Flashes lit the room. Lara blinked, stunned, as reporters swarmed. Investors whispered, impressed. Whitaker stammered. Of course, under my supervision, as part of a collaborative effort. But a director's voice cut him off. Enough. We know who saved the project. And we know who deserves credit. For once, the truth couldn't be buried. The mood flipped like a switch. Investors shook her hand. Reporters captured her smile. An executive declared, "From this day forward, Laura Bennett is part of our development team. Her talent cannot be ignored." Applause thundered. Robert rushed forward, wrapping his arms around his daughter. "I knew it, Laura. I always knew." She buried her face in his shoulder, tears falling freely. The world finally saw her. Sometimes life tests those with the least, to prove they have the most to give. Prejudice tries to reduce brilliance into stereotypes, but knowledge has no last name. Laura Bennett proved that courage and persistence can break any barrier. That greatness isn't measured in diplomas or pressed shirts, it's born in the refusal to quit when everyone else doubts you. Robert whispered to himself, choking back tears. "I'll never doubt her again." And the question lingers. How many Lauras are being underestimated right now? How many dreams are stalled because someone decided they didn't belong? Let this story remind us, true talent isn't judged by appearance, but by persistence. And justice isn't just about celebrating success, it's about ensuring their voices are never silenced again. Days later, the story reached its climax. At the Detroit Auto Expo, the company unveiled the prototype in front of a packed audience. But the spotlight wasn't on the executives or their speeches. It followed Laura. She walked across the stage in her worn jumpsuit, grease stains still visible, a symbol of where she came from. The crowd roared in applause. "Laura, how does it feel to be the one who made this possible?" a reporter shouted. She took the microphone, her eyes finding her father in the crowd. "I feel like everyone has value. It doesn't matter where you start, only where you're willing to go. I'm not an exception. I'm proof that persistence turns the impossible into just another challenge to overcome." The hall erupted in cheers. Robert let the tears fall freely this time, pride radiating from him. August stood with arms crossed, smiling quietly, knowing the cycle had come full circle. As the event ended, Laura and her father walked out together into the golden afternoon light. Robert draped his arm over her shoulders. "You didn't just fix that engine, Laura. You fixed the way the world sees you." She smiled softly. "No, Dad. I just showed them what was always here." The camera pulled back as they walked into the horizon. The engine's steady roar faded into the sound of applause. And on the black screen, one final truth appeared. Greatness always starts small. The only thing that matters is never giving up.